go in the exam? Well, you're going to do pretty much what we've done so far this semester. I'm probably going to be mostly on React. And again, I'll probably give you a starter, like I said, something that I need you to fill in, right? Similar to what we did with our midterm. I won't be able to, I don't think we can cover this stuff on the exam because it's so raw and new. It doesn't make any sense. All right, welcome back. We are COMP2112 in the fall 2022 semester at Georgian, and it's week 13, part 2 of our broadcast and recording. I think so. React only makes sense, Elena. Let's talk about where we are. We're still sitting here, and where last we left off, we were talking about middleware functions. And we also did an example with Express Static, which is static, like loading up our static files from a couple weeks ago. And if we look, we got something that looks like this. And you can see that all the routing works, the front end routing that we put together totally works like how we did it before. Okay. And the other thing to note for this one is, what if I put in a link that doesn't work, like something that looks like this? What happens then? And it'll give us cannot get. Okay, that's what it'll give us, because there is no catch-all for that kind of thing. We don't know what this is, and because this does not exist, it's going to give us cannot get. Now, there's ways around that if we wanted to make our static files work this way, but that's really it. Okay, nice. And I've closed that off because we're going to kind of come back there in a second. So there's also another, some other middleware, Express JSON, Express URL encode. There's also error handling middleware as well. And there's some very popular middleware functions that are out there that you can add in. Things like what we're going to see in our Express generator, body parser, compression. Body parsers use 25 million weekly downloads on average. And it parses incoming requests bodies before you do anything with it. And it's really good in terms of removing and sanitizing our request is what it really does more than anything else. And any body, like for example, from a form, if I kind of have a form that I want to process on the back end, that's what Express is amazing for, processing, because we can get information or requests from the back end from the user and then do something with them on the server and do some really great things. And so body parser is very popular as a middleware, third-party middleware function that we can use in our code. Compression, which allows us to compress our actual application itself to make it even faster. This is at runtime. Connect Flash allows us to make our little kind of message areas in our code. Cookie parser parses cookies. Cores, connects us with, allows us to do cross-origin resource sharing that we've talked about before. Debug allows us to output almost like a little logger, like Morgan, which is actually a request logger. And Morgan comes from Dexter Morgan, believe it or not, because he was kind of, that's where whoever made this thing really liked Dexter, the series, and used Morgan as a logger, almost like a way of analysis, if you will, and output, which is kind of cool. Express Session creates a session object, so uses session storage for keeping track of who's logged in and so on. Helmet secures up our Express app. Mongoose connects to MongoDB. We can't do that this semester, but you will be using Mongoose next semester with Rich. Passport allows us to do authentication middleware. And Serve Favicon allows us to have a little favicon that kind of goes up in the top left corner of your little of your tab on your browser. Okay, so these are all very popular third-party middleware functions that we can see in our apps. And we've talked about the application object. There are a bunch of different things that we've seen that you're going to see. One of them is app use, and this is used to create an Express middleware to handle HTTP requests sent to the server, right? That's what this is. But we're also going to see app set, which this is used to set something called environment variables. And environment variables are something that we can set in Express, almost like key value pairs in a dictionary. So when I say dictionary, it means like it's a collection where I say, I want to find Tom, and Tom means I want to output hello world, right? So if I look at Tom, Tom says hello world every single time, right? That's an environment variable. We can store anything you want in environment variables, like information, your pathing, and a bunch of other things that we can set up. There's also some built-in environment variables that Express uses. For example, things like what kind of view engine you want to use. You can set up the view engine. So this is configuration, is what app set is for. App get, again, to get the environment variable. If I want to store something in an environment variable and I want to get it back out, I can use app get. App engine, okay, it talks about what type of engine I want to use, right? Like we talked about. App locals, to set application level variables. Okay, that's something we can use. And many other ones. That's the app route, if I want to do some routing. And then the request object, that's the app object. The request object, you can do request query, which is an object containing the parse query string. So if I put any kind of question mark, in my query or anything else, when I'm actually, kind of on the URL, if a user does that, or let's say, for example, your form passes information back to the server, and at the top you're using a GET request, and the GET request is going to show you the stuff on the URL. That is your request query. I can use a request query to get the object containing all that parse query string parameters, and I can take those parameters and convert them into variables, is what I can do. And so on. Request body, again, this property is included in the body parser middleware, which we're going to see before, and request params, which is an object containing the parsed routing parameters, okay, that we want to see before. Okay, so a bunch of different things that we're going to see. These are all parts of Express that allows us to, to add functionality. I'm going to just skip. There's also the response object. We did the request object, the response object. I can set the response, for setting the header. I can set the status code if I want to as well. I can also redirect my website, or I can redirect my, or change from one URL to another with using res redirect. It's almost like using a window.location.href tag or href command in JavaScript, which changes my URL. It just almost like links programmatically to another part of your site. Okay, so that's res redirect. Okay, we're going to see those. Res send, we've seen this already, and this is used for non-streaming responses. And it says this method is a lot of background work because it takes care of MIME types and a bunch of other stuff too. Res JSON converts whatever your data object is into JSON format, which is pretty cool. Res render, we're going to see this one when we use Express Generator. It renders a view, and based on some kind of template that we're going to decide on, our template's going to be EJS. That's the template engine we're going to be using. Okay. That's the response object. How do we render views? Well, we're going to use the EJS templating engine. And the way it works typically with a model view controller design pattern, like we've talked about maybe briefly before, and Rich is going to go more into the model view controller design pattern. We have our view, which is seen by our user. So this is kind of how it works. The user kind of says, I want to go to this website, right? And the view sends a request to the controller right over here. The controller processes the view. If I need to get data, like we say, we go through the model class for the data. Example for us, it was TV shows, right? The TV show model. And then maybe it connects to some kind of database over here. Sorry, I'm going to draw it with my mouse, which is going to be pretty ugly, but this is the idea. Here's our database, right? An ugly database, a broken database, but it's a database, right? Our model connects to the database, gets some information, routes it back to the model, back to the controller, and then updates the view. That's what happens. This is the model view controller paradigm. That's what it is. And it's just a design pattern. It doesn't mean that you have to program it this way. However, Express and web applications in general, it's a very common design pattern for us to use, this idea. So we want to update the view. This is the thing that we want to do. That view is going to be generated, just like it is in React. And just like we've seen in the past with single page applications, this is what we're going to do. We're going to generate this view, and we're going to use a template engine for this, which is going to be EJS, like we said. Okay, so that is how we're going to render views. Express has two methods to render views: app render, and the more common method is res render. And res render is take the response and render some kind of output. Here's my response. I'm going to respond with rendering this page. And render means draw or generate. That's what it means for you. I'm going to generate this page when I use the res render command. Okay. Okay. So let's, instead of installing EJS, this basically talks about how to do it. And I'm just going to skip this piece because it talks about how to set up our view engine and all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to do that here. Instead, we're going to jump to the Express generator, which is where I want to get to today for the last part of for the remainder of the day. I want to work on the Express generator. Okay, and this is required for your in-class exercise 10 and for your assignment 3. Okay, this is what we want to do. So back to this. So we want to go to our application, and we have this little application that we ran. I'm going to clean it up because this is just an example about how Express works. I'm also going to make a GitHub repository now and all that stuff. So things that we can keep and things we need to discard. We don't want to keep the public folder anymore. So that's goodbye. This is just for practice, like I said. Okay. I'm going to keep node modules, because we need to do that. Package.json. I'm going to rename this. Going to rename this to packet.json.old or pack. And the reason why is because it's going to, for the Express generator, if we use it here, it's going to rewrite our package.json. Okay, so I'm just going to stop our server. That's also something we're going to do. Okay, so I just rewrote our package.json.old. Our server .ts is also going to be something that we're going to delete. So we're going to get rid of all this. So server.ts and server.js and all that stuff we're going to get rid of, delete. So move those to the recycle bin. We're going to get rid of this yarn lock file for a second. So yarn lock delete. Go. And node modules we can keep, but really at the end of the day, they're going to be regenerated for us. So I'm just going to, it's almost like we're starting from scratch. I could have just started from scratch here, but we're just going to just get rid of all this. We're going to keep our tsconfig.json file. And really at the end of the day, we're going to regenerate all this in a second. So just delete this too. Okay. And it's going to do its business in a second. Yes. All right, great. Now I want to use the Express generator. And in order for me to do that, I'm just going to close down Visual Studio Code here. And I'm just going to point it to week 13. The way I'm going to do that is with a command prompt this time around. So first we need to install the Express generator. So here's my command prompt. Whenever I install something, one more time, I'm going to use the command prompt as administrator. So let's go to the administrative command prompt here, run it as administrator. Here we are. When I run it as administrator, I want to install the Express generator, and it's going to look like this. I'm going to go npm install express-generator -g for global. So this is the command I want you to issue, please. And you need to do it somewhere where you can, kind of get this thing. And let's put this inside of the chat. This is what I want you to do. And when you do this, by the way, you can do it more than one time. Even if you have the Express generator here, you can do it. And don't worry about the vulnerabilities because we're going to work with them in a second. All right, so that is the Express generator. You've installed it. Thank you. Now, what I want to do is I want to change my directory, and I want to change my directory to my the directory that I'm working in right now, which is, and this is not my comp, my week 13 directory, but rather the containing directory. the containing directory here. So I want to just grab this and go here. Okay, so this is what I want to do. I want to kind of teleport into that area. Actually, we can use a regular command prompt for that. That's why it was giving me that response. So again, CD space and a regular command prompt to go into the containing folder, not my actual folder, but the folder above it. Okay. And now that I've done that, I want to use the Express generator. And if we want to see the documentation for this, okay, going back to here, here's my Express generator. This is what we've done so far, right? And what we do when we use the Express generator is we have to specify the view engine. So we're going to say Express, that's the command, right? And then -- view, and then what kind of view do we want? We're going to use, instead of Pug, we're going to use EJS. That is the view we're going to use, EJS. So we can actually do Express, right? And then -E for an option. There's the option that we have, and the directory that we want to put it inside of. Okay, Express -E, and then whatever the directory is. And the directory should be something that we're going to use, okay, as an example. Okay, it's going to generate all this stuff. Let's try it here in our command prompt. Ready? So I'm going to say Express -E for EJS. That is the command we need to use. And then we want to use the folder that we want. So we're going to say COMP2112 in the fall 2022 semester. And for us, it is week 13. Now it's going to say, this isn't empty. Are you sure you want to do this? Because it's destructive, what we're doing. And if I do this, it's going to say warning. It says, it's been renamed to --view EJS. Destination is not empty. Do you want to continue? And then if I say yes, it's going to kind of construct all of our structure that we want inside of my application. That's what it's going to do. Okay. So I just went Express -E, and then this option, notice it says, it gave us some information that says it's been renamed, but it still kind of did it. And you can see that it used EJS because the views always end with EJS. In React, we've always used TSX. That's what it was for us, right? If you're using JavaScript with React, it would be JSX. But here, our views are going to be EJS. That is the ending style that we're going to be using, or the extension. All right, good. So let's see what this gave us. So again, if you look here, when we install Express, it gives us all of this data, this structure, this folder structure. We get an app.js file. We get a bin file with this weird www file inside there. And this www file, what we're going to do is we're going to pull out of this because we're going to restructure this. And it's going to be called our server.js. Okay, that's what it's going to be. Okay. Also, we're using JS and we want to convert to TS. So that's going to be our first job, converting everything to TypeScript, making sure things are working the same way. And then we're going to have this as your basic structure that you're going to use for assignment number 3. Okay, that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to build it with you, this basic structure, and then you can layer things on top of it. And I want to do this today to help you with anything you need to do. Okay, back to this then. If I go to my Visual Studio Code now, and if I look there, this is the structure that I'm going to get. So this is just like me going to my week 13 and drag and dropping it to here. You're going to get this. Okay. Notice my package.json.old is with the thing that we did last time. Okay. And I want to show you why I did this, because my package.json actually has older versions of Express that we've got here. I want to replace some of these old versions with one thing at a time. And we also have some additional information here that I want to keep, all right, for this one. So this is something that I want to do, right? So my package.json that it generated for me had this, and I don't want this to be the way it is. I want to replace this for the most part with my package.json.old, but I'm missing a couple of files. I don't have cookie parser. I don't have debug. I don't have EJS. I don't have HTTP errors or Morgan. I want all of this to be added into our project files, okay? Before we move on. So let's do it. Let's convert. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this, just rename this one. So package.json, let's rename. And I'm going to call this package.json.older. All right. And older is going to be the one we just got. Okay. And I want to convert our package.json.old to package.json. So kind of rename this one to package.json now. We're just renaming it back. Okay, so back, we have this again. Awesome. All right, we need some stuff. We've got Express, but we need some stuff in this one right here. And I'm just going to do a split screen so we can see both of them side by side. So this is some stuff we need. And from this one, this is the stuff we have. All right, so we need cookie parser. Let's add that in. So I'm going to go to here, and I'm going to say yarn add cookie dash parser, right, as an example. And then it's going to add that in. So there's cookie parser. And by the way, it's going to install everything we've asked it to install too. All the node modules files are going to be installed the exact same way we had them before. Okay, so cookie parser just got added in. There it is. Okay. We also want debug. Let's add that in. So yarn add debug. Okay. Yarn add. We have Express already at a better level than this one. And we want HTTP errors to be added in too. So HTTP-errors. Right. Add that in. And we also want Morgan. Right. So yarn add. Give me Morgan. Okay. So far, so good. Now, on this, we are missing EJS. Let's add that in too. Yarn add EJS. Take a look at the difference. EJS at 2.61 or EJS at 3.18. And like I told you before, I'm almost this close to abandoning Express Generator altogether at this point because of all the changes we're going to make. But it does give us a structure, and this is why I use it. Okay, not because I like to use it anymore. Exactly the way it is, because we make so many changes to it. And you're going to do the same exact thing next semester with Rich. Okay, for the most part. I want to get some dev dependencies here as well. And we've got Express and jQuery and Node, but we can get the other ones too. So let's do those ones. So again, I'm just going to bring this up a little bit. Okay. And let's do the next part. So here's what I want. I want yarn add at types / and I want cookie parser. Let's do them all at the same time. At types / I want to do debug. At types / EJS, right? At types / HTTP errors, right? At types / Morgan, I think is the other one that we need. I think we have everything else. All right, so this is one big line and then minus dev at the end. So what this line does, remember, it does all the additions all at once as opposed to making it all separate. Okay, so I'm going to grab this line here and I'm going to copy it. And I'm going to give you that on the chat. There it is. This is what I want you to issue, this command right here. Okay. And if I issue that command, it's going to go out and grab all the stuff I need for my dev dependencies right here. Okay, good. So what this does is it gives us all the code hinting we want for making our application for the very first time. And like I said before, this is kind of like a one-time cost. We do this and then we add to it over and over again. I don't need this part anymore. We've done everything that this has and then some. Our package.json file is actually way better. Notice the difference though. The start file looks at node and inside the bin www. We have to change this to server.js. And I'm just going to close this off now and get rid of my package.json.older. Let's get rid of that. Delete. Because that was the one that I got from Express Generator. Okay, checking with you now. Are you with me? Have you done the package.json that looks like this? Where are we together with this one? With me? How are we doing with Sarah and with everybody else? Tyler's good. Andres, you good? Okay. And how about Elena? Are you okay? Thank you. Which part did you want me to get? Did you want me to just give you this file? Because honestly, this is all that we've really done, this piece right here, right? Do you have the Express generator already or no? No. Okay. So that is this. We just did, if you wanted to try this out, Express -E, and then COMP2112 F2022 week 13 would be the file that we generated, right? And then this is what you have to do from there. Okay, hopefully that is the only part you're missing. Well, let's continue. So now that we have this, we want to change where it says bin. Bin is kind of a really weird thing. Can we use it? Absolutely. We're not going to here. We're going to simplify this. So I'm going to go inside the bin folder and I want to grab this www file and I'm going to pull it out here to the root. I'm just going to do this by dragging and dropping it like this. And that www file is our server.ts. So let's do that. Let's go into that server.ts. Let's rename it. I'm going to call this server.ts because that is the file that we want to use, server.ts. Okay. And notice that there's a bunch of errors we're going to get here. No, it is impossible to follow. Okay. Which part how can I back it up so that it is possible for you to follow? Is it the speed? Is it the understanding? Which part, Elena? I can go back. Too late. Okay, I'm not sure. I think maybe you mean that I'm too fast. Okay, so I've kind of pulled out my www file. Maybe what you want to do for everyone that's not catching up is wait for a second. I'm gonna put this up on GitHub and then just start from there, right? Because that is where I'm going to give you this anyway. This is a starting project for not just for your in-class exercise 10, but also for your assignment 3. Okay, that's what I want to do for you. So I don't need the bin folder anymore. So I'm going to delete it. So let's get rid of that bin folder. So no more bin folder. Goodbye. Right? I have my public routes and views folders. I have my app.js, which I'm going to change to app.ts just by renaming it. So I'm just rename app.ts, right? And that's the next thing I'm going to do here. So app.ts, server.ts, we've got here. We got a tsconfig.json file, which is everything that we need for our Node.js application. I'm just going to make sure, I'm just going to check my notes to make sure there's no issues with this one. And I think we're pretty good. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so that is our what we have so far. Here's our app.ts, right? And our app.ts has a bunch of stuff here that we're going to change in a second. All right. And then inside of our routes, we also have a index.js, which we're going to rename to index.ts as we're converting to TypeScript. Same thing with users, rename. We're going to get rid of the users file in a second. There we go. So routes and views. Our public folder only has some stuff that we need, our images, JavaScripts, and styles. We're going to redo this public folder to make it look how we want it to. And our views have 2 views, an index.ejs view that looks like this, right? And that's it. Let's make our application work. Okay, so now the reason why this is giving us all these errors is because, like we said, we're using vars and requires as opposed to imports and exports. Okay, so we're going to do that first. We're going to start way back in the server.ts file first. So this is how we're going to start. And in the server.ts file, I'm going to start fixing some of these issues. Okay. 1, we're looking inside of our app.ts, which means this has to be ./app, which is what we're going to require. And I'm going to put this as an import statement. Okay. So again, just to convert this as it is. So I'm going to say import app Here we are, import app, and then again from app. We've seen this before in React. This is our first step. It's giving us an error because app isn't properly formed. It says it's not a module because it isn't a module yet, but we're going to get there. Okay. Debug is our application. Remember, debug is our middleware function, a third-party middleware function that's going to allow us to do debugging. We're going to break this up into a couple of lines. So I'm going to say import debug from debug. Okay, and it's good practice to do this anyway, just like this. And I want to call the debug by itself, like so. And I'm going to call this whatever the server is, that is the server that we're going to be debugging. Okay. Again, we don't really need debug right now, but I'm just making it so it doesn't give us errors. Import HTTP, we've seen this before, from HTTP is what we're going to go there. That's just using Node with HTTP, the HTTP server. We're going to change our vars to const because vars don't exist in our world. We're going to say const port, normalized port, which is a little function that we wrote there. Process.environment.port or 3000. We've seen that before. The app set is the set function that we're going to use for port. Okay, we're doing that. And we're creating our server. So we're just going to change this to const. So const server is equal to HTTP create server. And we're passing in the app that we're getting from our other file that we haven't corrected yet in here. Okay. We're going to server.listen on a particular port, which is probably going to be port 3000 for us locally, right? And we're not going to do all this right here. I'm just going to go back to our normalized port to fix this problem. So the reason why val is giving us nothing is because TypeScript is saying, well, what is this? We can't just say what this is and say nothing. So we can put two things. We can make it any, which we don't want to do, but we could do something like this. So we can say this is a type string. Okay. Const port is what this should be. Const port, and we're going to say parse int, whatever the val is, we're going to parse it to an int, convert it to an integer. Okay. And we're going to say if is not a number, that's what that is. If it's not a number, the port, then we return the value. However, if my port is greater than or equal to 0, then I want to return that port as the value. And then it says return false. So this normalized port method either returns string, number, or false. Those are the return types of this thing. String, right? Number, or false. Those are the three things that it can return. Again, for other languages, this is not possible. Only in JavaScript that we allow this to happen. Scrolling down more, for the error function to fix this problem on error. If error is of type HTTP error, is what we want to code it as, HTTP error, okay? And for us to use HTTP error, we can't unless we import HTTP error from HTTP error. So at the top here, if I go back up to here, I need to do import HTTP, it's going to look like this, curly brackets, HTTP error, right? And it's going to be from HTTP-errors. That's where that's coming from, that import statement. And again, if I scroll down now, that's the command that I'm just importing here. All right, so that's the one I want to use, right? And if I scroll down, you're going to see that now I don't have an error anymore here. That's taking care of that error. All I'm doing right now is correcting errors, guys, in TypeScript. We throw that error, the pipe, all this kind of stuff. Everything else is okay. We leave this alone. At the bottom, we have a little listener. We have to correct this too. So we're going to say, let address equal to the server address. And we're going to say, let binding, we're going to change this piece a little bit. Let binding is equal to pipe. That's what we're going to say. Plus my address, okay? And I'm just going to debug listening on and whatever the binding is. So this is what it's going to look like at the end, which is going to take care of our issue. I'm just going to refactor it so it looks like how we want it to look. Curly braces on top of each other here. And then we should be good to go for the next piece. So I'm just going to refactor this so that it looks like how we want it to. We're still doing well with time. Okay, so I think this is all good to go. And this is our new file for our server.ts. Okay. So again, all I did was just convert it to TypeScript. I haven't transpiled yet. Next, let's do our, and you know what, as we're going, I'm going to put this up on GitHub now, this way. You can watch on GitHub and wait for the final version. That's the version I think you should take. And I'll tell you when the final version is where you can start over again. And we'll take a short break after I do that. So I'll say git init, git add dot. And notice I don't have a git ignore file, so it's taking everything, and that's okay for now. Git commit -m, and I'll say initial commit. This is kind of still broken, but it's okay. And what I want to do with this one is I'm going to put this up on GitHub. So I'm going to go to GitHub. And I'm just going to add a new repository like normal, where I'm going to go COMP2112 in the fall 2022 semester, and it's week 13. There it is. I'm going to grab these last 3 lines of code, right click here and enter, and it's going to push everything else up to that link. And you're going to see it's going to take time because we have a lot of node modules that we're pushing up there. And this is the link that you can follow right now for that first part. Okay, if you're following along and you didn't quite get the server.ts changes, they're right here. These are all the server.ts changes. Continuing. So that is server.ts. Let's fix our app.ts for the most part. There's going to be some pieces to make this all work. So again, app, I still haven't transpiled. Now, instead of me going through there and changing all my vars to const and all those kind of things, first, I want to change all of these ones here to import statements. So let's do that. So I'm going to say import from, and I want to make it so that I'm just going to go like this, copy, and I'm going to replace my var with import froms. I don't care about the errors right now, okay? And I want to do it, actually it's not import froms, it's just imports. I'll be okay. Imports. Let's try that again. Okay, up until there. Okay, this var app is equal to express. We're going to make that a const. Okay, at this point. And all of this requires stuff, that's going to be from here. So I'm going to say from, right? And I'm just going to grab this from and copy it. And I'm just going to replace the brackets and the equal sign with from. Like so. Just to make us really quickly, kind of go through this and do it step by step so that you see it. Just converting it to TypeScript right now and getting rid of all these extra brackets at the end, which is going to take away those errors. Okay, we're getting errors from here because my index router and my user router aren't made yet properly, and that's okay. But so far, no errors down in here, okay? So we're going to get in this in a second, okay? So I have /users, and I'm not going to explain this yet. And then when we come to our bottom function here, app use, we need to define what this is. So this is going to be create error.http error. We're going to use that for that one. For my requests, we're going to make this equal to an express.request. For my response, it's going to be an express.response object. And for my next, this is going to be the express next function, which is what I want to use here. So that's what that is. Everything else is the same. So nothing else has changed so far on my app.ts file. This is just, all I did was just name what these types are because TypeScript doesn't like not knowing what types are, okay? Let's refactor it so it looks like ours. So kind of all the curly braces are on top of each other. And other than these 2 errors right now, save. And I'm going to put this up on GitHub. And we're going to say updated app.ts. Git push. Okay, so app.ts now looks like it should. Last pieces before we run this thing for the first time are index.ts. The reason why our actually our app.ts is one more change. I forgot, which is at the bottom. It can't say module exports is equal to app. We should say export default app is what we're going to say at the bottom. Save. Okay, export default app. And then in our routes folder now, in our index.ts, the first thing we're going to address, in our index.ts, we want to modify this one so it's also a proper format. So again, at the top here, we're going to say import express from express. I'm just changing it over. And our router is going to be a const router here instead. So const router. And then this is okay, other than this piece, which we're going to change to export default router. Export default router. Okay, that's all that's going to change there. Save. And the last one, which is causing an error, is the users.ts file. All right, let's put this up first. So I'll say clear git commit -m, and we'll say updated our index.ts file. Git push. So now that is done. There we go. And the last one is the users.ts file, which doesn't compute. We're going to do the exact same thing here. So again, we're going to say import express from express, right? And we're going to change this over like this. And that here is export defaults is a router. And that takes care of that. Now, no errors anymore. And let's put this up. So I'll say git add dot, git commit -m, and we'll say updated our users.ts file. Git push. Awesome. Now we're ready to start. And what I'd ask you to do at this point, this is your starting point. So for people who weren't able to get there and you followed along and built it with me, that's okay. If you got that done, great. But if you couldn't, please download my project from my GitHub link at this point. I'm going to wait for a second until you do that. You can replace the project that you're using right now with mine. So you have the same starting point as me. And this is important, guys, for everybody, right? So that way you don't have to wait to figure out what I did. I wanted to show you the build process, why I changed things so that it compile, or it's going to compile in a second. But I need you guys to follow along from here. All right. Otherwise, it's going to be not understandable. Okay. And you won't have the right questions to ask when you're building your own assignment. And I don't want that. So please do that now. I'll wait for a second. Please let me know when you're done. Actually, what we'll do is it's 9:48. I'm going to stop recording. I'm going to take a short break, 5 minutes, and I'll let you guys catch up. I'll stop recording now.